What's up, everybody? Video today on the CAE shifter that had been requested and I've been slacking on. So let's start at the start. So the shifter that comes stock in your 996, in my opinion, it's absolute junk. It completely lets down the driving experience. If the feedback of the car is something that's important to you, it really lets down the driving experience. The steering is great. The response of the brakes is great. The engine response is great. Shifting is sloppy and imprecise. So, that was pretty evident for me within an hour of driving the car that I wasn't going to stick with that setup forever. So the options that exist, at least readily available commercial options, are rebuilding the stock setup, which takes some of the plastic components that come within the stock shifter assembly, which the shifter assembly, if you're not sure, it's basically like a module that bolts into the car. So it's really pretty easy to take it out and put it back in. But the I guess minimally expensive, you can replace some of the components from that stock shifter assembly, and that supposedly really helps to tighten it up. I don't have any experience with it, so I can't speak to it other than I know of its existence. Then you've got various what I would call short shift options. So from people like B&M and Porsche makes, I think they have an upgraded version you can buy from Porsche. Then you can get the assemblies that come out of the Cup cars or the GT3. Again, I don't have experience with those either. My guess is they're improvements over what comes stock in a standard 996 because the stock setup just sucks that bad. And I think they range in price from like $100 for like an Amazon special up to $400 or $500 for like a Cup car version that you would find on the used market. Then you get into the next tier, which I would put the numeric shifter and this shifter from CAE, which are really complete replacement units where they're primarily made out of metal instead of plastic, and there are no stock components left in the system. The shifter setups are made to run with the stock cables, although you can run upgraded cables along with them. And at least for the CAE, and I believe for the numeric too, they're pretty much a bolt-in affair. You unbolt the stock setup and you put the replacement in. So I went with the CAE. The reasons that I did that over the numeric, and I did bounce back and forth a little bit between the two. Number one, I didn't have any concerns with modifying my stock interior. If you know my car, then you'll know that over time the stock interior becomes more and more sparse, which you do have to do with the CAE shifter. There does have to be some interior modifications. I think you can keep it relatively modest if you'd like to, and have it look, at least for the trim, have it looking mostly stock. But there is some modification that needs to be done to get around, I believe it's this rear portion of the shifter, or actually, no, I'm sorry, it's this front portion here. Whereas the numeric, I believe you can bolt in place and retain all of the factory trim and a factory look when it's done. As you can see, the CAE shifter looks nothing like the factory and much more closely resembles the setup that you would get on a sequential gearbox, or if you're familiar with rallying from the late 80s, early 90s when they were still using H patterns and they put the shifter up high for proximity to the steering wheel. That's the setup. So number one, I love the way that it looks. I think that it just looks so cool, and the bonus of the added functionality and how well it works. I mean, it's a very rare win-win where, for me, something looks as cool as it works. So talking about the CAE shifter specifically, from a function standpoint, it is the best shifter I have ever used in any car that I've driven. That's a street car. So that's Ferrari H pattern, gated gear shifts, um, uh, Focus ST, Evo, STIs, Hondas, Mazdas. This shifter is the absolute best. The location of it ergonomically being raised up so high is feels like this is how it's supposed to work. The shifter should be at this point ergonomically. But the how precise the shifting is and the mechanical feedback that you get with each shift, it's completely unmatched in shifters that I have familiar with. So just to illustrate that, if you've seen my driving videos either at the track or on the road, then you've seen me, actually use this thing while I'm driving, which I'm not going to do right now because the car's sitting up on jack stands. But just to give you an idea, I mean, it's ridiculous. It is just absolutely, it makes shifting so enjoyable each and every shift. I mean, that for a lot of people will hear me say that and they'll think that I'm fucking nuts, because who really gives a shit about something like that? But I do, and if you're watching this video, likely you probably do as well. So, functionally, awesome. Aesthetics, awesome. Let's talk about downsides. As far as I'm concerned, again, I don't really give a shit about the interior, but that may be important to you, and you can go on the internet and look about the modifications that you need to do in order to make this work. The downside for me would be singular price. It's wicked expensive. So you're talking about $1,400 for a shifter. So a lot of people will balk at that, and that's perfectly fine for them, in my opinion. And I don't like throwing money away on parts and really try to avoid it. Every dollar I can save on a part is a dollar I can allocate to a different part. It's totally worth the money. Totally worth it, especially when you're talking about having to pay $500 or $600 for a factory Porsche part from a GT3 or a Cup car. I felt the Cup shifters, this is better, like by a lot. So, for me, there is no performance equal, with the exception maybe of the numeric shifter, which, again, the numeric shifter is also pretty expensive. I don't think to the level of the CAE, but yeah, it's pretty expensive. So, it's expensive, but in my opinion, and the opinion I'll give the people that are watching these videos, it's worth it. I bought mine directly from CAE in Germany. The transaction was super easy. They shipped it DHL. I had it in, it was like 3 or 4 days after they got the money. I had the thing dropped off at my door. So Hard Motorsports is another vendor I know that sells them. But I went directly to CAE, and the experience was awesome. Installation is super easy, again, because the shifter assemblies are really bolt-in, bolt-out modules. You simply remove your trim pieces, you remove the shift cables from the factory setup, you bolt the CAE one in, you hook up the shift cables per their instructions. There's minimal adjustments that need to be done. The reverse works on a lockout where a bar actually moves out of the way to allow you to engage reverse. That needed some slight adjustment on mine, but really this was a, say, hour install, soup to nuts, up and running. So for what you get, how easy it is to install, I highly recommend it. This was a long video to talk about a shifter, but I think it's probably worthy of it. It's an awesome piece of kit, and if you have a 996 and you're interested in really upping the level of feedback that the car gives you, and you're looking at shifters, I would definitely recommend, if you're willing to live with the trim modifications, going with the CAE. I don't really think you can go wrong. I've driven it on the street a lot, driven it on the track a lot. If people say, it is exclusive to one or the other, I would say you can go back and watch my videos and see it works fine in the street or the track. So that's it for my video on the CAE shifter. If I left anything out, hard to believe that could happen in a video this long, but if I did, leave them in the comments. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel, like the video. And if there are any other parts that I have on the car or anything else that you want to see videos on, shoot it in the comments and I'll get a video up for you. Thanks for watching.